Hello again, my little conscripts, and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. And today we're going to talk about getting into the Guard. Whether you are a veteran coming over from another faction and picking up Guard for the first time, or you are someone who's brand new to 40k who thinks, hey, the Guard look neat, I want that to be my first faction. When getting into the Guard, there are a lot of things you need to learn. And it is definitely not the easiest faction to get to grips with. There's loads of information out there. There's forum posts. You can find all sorts of things on Reddit and stuff like that. And it can be kind of confusing knowing where to start. Combining this with sometimes people saying things like, well, just collect what you want. And which actually I feel can sometimes be more of a hindrance than a help because there's so many things to pick from. You might not know what you want to start with. So I thought, let's just cut through it all. Let's cut through the chatter. Let's cut through the crap and let's just talk about how to start Guard. And this is going to be part wishy-washy, where there is going to be elements of collect what you want. I know. But it's also going to be very not wishy-washy and hard and straight to the point. And these are the things you should get. And especially when we're talking about when I'm giving you direct advice, like this is the units I would get. This is the army I would aim for if I was collecting Guard for the first time. I'm going to be giving you reasons why I'm picking those units, and it's pretty much all going to be based on the experience of the last 3 editions, 8th, 9th, and 10th edition, so nearly 10 years of playing what I would describe as new 40k, because there is, and this is the first thing I want to touch upon, there is old 40k and there is new 40k. Old 40k kind of describes everything that came from 7th edition and before, and new 40k describes everything from 8th edition onwards. And often you have a lot of grognards and you have a lot of veterans of the hobby who will give you advice based on things from what I would call old hammer, which don't necessarily translate particularly well into what I would call new hammer. So what I'm going to be advising you is going to be based purely on just 8th edition onwards, what I have noticed have been consistently well-performing units and things that you just want to have in your army. And play styles which never go out of fashion. So with all that said, let's dive right into this. So on the one hand, collect what you want. There is definitely a serious element of truth to that. If you are, it depends what you're getting into the Guard for, and it depends what you're getting into 40k for. Are you someone who is just going to be collecting? You're not that bothered about playing. Well then, yeah, you can literally pick up what you want. And you don't even need to limit yourself to one faction at that point. If you wake up one day and go, I fancy Guard, then you can pick up a box of Guardsmen. If you wake up the next day and go, I fancy Eldar, firstly, you should probably go and see someone about that. But secondly, you could just go and buy that box. So because of that element, we're just going to put that away. And we're going to talk about this through the lens of if you're looking to play. Because if you're looking to play, then making informed decisions is very important. Because this is the big thing that has changed from old hammer to new hammer, and that the fact that 40k has become much more competitive. There are, like it or not, right and wrong decisions. You can pick up units which are just bad, and they have been bad for a long time. And there is, oh, well, you could make any unit. Well, yeah, there's an element of that. But if you're a beginner, there are units that are objectively worse than others. And you want to be starting out on the right foot. So when you see the advice, oh, just collect what you want, it's really important to only take that so far. Because if you're looking to play and to win, then you want to be making sure you're picking up correct units. Otherwise, you are going to be starting off on the back foot. And I think what's really important with 40k, especially the fact that it's more competitive, that people essentially do just play to win these days, is that if you buy a unit which then turns out to be crap, you have wasted your money. Which I know. See, there's going to be loads of people that are going to disagree with this video. I'm probably going to get quite a lot of salt down in the comment sections, but I'm just going to tell you the truth. If you buy a bad unit, which has been historically bad, and everyone said, oh, just get it because it looks cool. And then you're someone that is coming into this game to play to win. You have, essentially had bad advice. You've had bad advice. And so that unit that you've spent your money on, it's going to spend more time on the shelf. It's not going to be contributing to you and your win rate and you trying to win games and everything. So objectively, that was bad advice and that was a bad decision. So that's why I say you have to be very careful when you tell people just to collect what they want, just buy what they want. There's definitely risks associated with that if you're coming into this with the new 40k mindset, which is I want to play to win. So with that being said, what are some objectively good units? This can be a very difficult question. And I'm not going to cop out. I am going to give you some objectively good units. All right, don't worry. But the reason it is a difficult question to answer is because 40k is ever changing. Even though it's not a video game, it sometimes likes to pretend that it is a video game. And so with balance patches coming out every 3 months, a big complaint that that people that are in the game right now kind of have is the game changes too much. There is an element of truth to that, but that in itself is also a bit of a myth. And it's one of the things that people say online. They kind of repeat things that they've seen online. The game does change a lot. But what tends to change is the tip of the spear. If you are what is called chasing the meta, which is you're like, okay, well, right now, XYZ is really, 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 really good. So I'm going to collect XYZ. That XYZ is probably going to get nerfed. And that's when people complain, oh, well, GW released this new unit and it was really, really powerful. And now it's been nerfed. Oh, how could anyone have seen this coming? Well, if you've paid attention to the game for longer than 5 minutes, you would know that things get nerfed. Now, here's the thing. Obviously, that applies to someone who's been playing the game for a while. But if you're brand new, you might not be familiar with the speed at which things can change in 40k. So there is an element of things changing a lot, but it does only tend to be the tip of the spear, things that tend to be the best. There is a whole swath of units, I would say 90% of the units, that don't really change all that much. And what's interesting is have fundamentally not changed all that much over many, many years and several editions at this point. And so the units that I'm going to talk to you about now and the playstyle I'm going to talk to you about now is one that I have personally, so this is not based on something I've read online, this is something that I have personally experienced, all right? Has barely changed since the beginning of 8th edition. So that's 3 years of 8th edition, 3 years of 9th edition, and at time of recording, 2 years of 10th edition. And if I was a betting man, I think it would probably still be pretty good for the last year of 10th edition and probably going into 11th edition as well. The playstyle, which I actually recommend to all beginners, I don't know, 8 minutes into recording, I'm just getting into the meat. No, I don't think so. I think some of the stuff I was saying before was kind of important for this next bit. But the playstyle that I would recommend is Mech Guard, Mechanized Imperial Guard. Now, if you're not entirely certain what Mech Guard is, don't worry, I'll give you a brief explanation now. It's the idea of having an armored force, but with a notable infantry contingent. It's infantry inside dedicated transports. So rather than having your infantry foot slogging across the board, maybe providing a screen for your tanks, your infantry tend to be mounted up inside transports. Now, there's a whole number of reasons why this playstyle is advantageous, especially to beginners. Firstly, it is much easier to collect. One of the big myths that people tend to learn early on about Guard is that the tanks are actually the easier part. Everyone thinks that big models mean harder to build, mean take more time to paint, but it's actually the exact opposite. Bigger models are way easier to paint. I can knock out a tank whether it's a Leman Russ battle tank or a Chimera, something relatively middling in terms of size, I can probably get one of those done in 2 to 3 hours. After it's been built and it's been primed, that'll probably take about 2 to 3 hours as well. So let's say in a day I can get one tank done. When it comes to infantry, it can take a lot longer. And I think it's because the tanks tend to be bigger, and bigger things require almost less fine detail. Infantry have got all the different pouches and buttons. If you really want to do a good job. Tanks, it's just big flat panels. So tanks are easier to build and they are quicker to paint. And guard infantry tends to be an absolute grind when it comes to building and painting. So one of the big reasons why I think Met Guard is so beginner friendly, in my opinion, is because you can avoid a lot of the infantry grind, but you still get the advantage of having infantry. Infantry is very, very important to the Guard. A lot of other factions can get away with next to no infantry, especially battle line infantry. They can spend all of their toys, all of their points on elite damage dealers. They can have them on vehicles and monsters. If they do have infantry, they tend to be very elite, very capable, not needed in massive quantities. In the Guard, your infantry is really important because one of the big advantages that Guard has is that our infantry tends to be very cheap and it tends to be very good at doing primary objectives. And that this is true. This has been true again over many editions. They tend to be good at doing prime objectives. If things like actions need to be done, so go up to this objective, perform this action, you won't be able to shoot or charge or anything like that. Rather than having to use an expensive unit and take that out of the game for essentially for a turn, you can take a cheap infantry squad and pop it on there. Obviously, one of the disadvantages of infantry is that they're very squishy. So normally when you're playing Guard, you tend to have to bring 80, 100, 120 infantry, which is a lot of infantry. It's a lot to ask someone to build and paint. Or that same situation where you need that a lot of infantry to do those objectives, you could get away with 50 if you're playing mechanized Guard. 5 squads of basic infantry stuffed inside 5 dedicated transports has yet to let me down in almost a decade. And so the Chimeras or the Tauruxes, whatever you want to put them inside, they are really quick and easy to build and paint. You've got less infantry to grind through, and then you can spend, and then once you've got that sort of component of your list done, we can then go over to adding in the main armor things like Leman Russes and Rogel Dawns. Another big advantage of mechanized Guard is it does tend to be a little bit of, by definition, by its natural state, not only is it a themed army, and a lot of people like to run themed lists. Guard, one thing you say about Guard players is often the number one reason for them getting into a faction is not necessarily because they're getting into faction, not necessarily because they want to win every game, but because they've got a vision in their head of an army and they want to enact that vision on the tabletop. Now, Mechanized Guard is not only naturally very much a themed army, and if you're looking for lore to get you hyped up, you've got entire regiments dedicated to this, like the Armageddon Steel Legion. And so it's great for having a theme. It's great for having, be able to get your lore on. But also, it's naturally quite good on the tabletop. And the reason it's naturally quite good is because it isn't not only a themed list, but it's also a bit of a skew list. If you turn up to a battlefield with a Met Guard army list, you're typically looking at 5 to 6 vehicles with infantry inside them, 5 to 6 armored transports, and then you're looking at 4 to 6 other armored vehicles as well. It's not uncommon for a mechanized Guard player to put onto the table between 10 and, well, I say 10 plus vehicles. Now, if your opponent hasn't brought enough anti-tank to deal with that, then they are going to be starting from the back foot. They're going to be starting from a disadvantage, and you are going to be starting with an advantage. So not only is this army, I would say, generally easier to collect, not only would I say it's generally cheaper to collect, because let me tell you, one thing that's also been true for the last 8 or so years is the fact that you can it won't be the best build, and you might need to do a bit of eBay restoration, you might need to do a bit of secondhand TLC, but you can still go on eBay and Facebook Marketplace and all this kind of stuff, these secondhand buy and sell sources of Warhammer, and you can get a Leman Russ for between 20 and 30 pounds. Probably 20. I did this the other day on stream because people didn't believe me. I went on and I found the whole front page. Now, this may be different where you're located, but especially in the UK, the whole front page, if I go to eBay and type Imperial Guard Leman Russ or Astra Militarum Leman Russ, it will come up with many examples of Leman Russes, £20 plus £5 postage, or £25 free postage. So it's very, it is, even though it sounds like, oh my God, if I buy this new in box, it's going to be like £40-50 per tank. This is going to be like £400-500 to collect this army. Then the infantry, no, you can get it much cheaper than that. And because a lot of Guard players, Guard is quite a popular faction, and when people, if they leave, they tend to stick the stuff on eBay, and there's loads and loads of like tanks available and all that kind of stuff. So you tend to have relatively competitive secondhand prices. So the point is that not only is this faction easier to collect, it's also cheaper to collect. It's also easier to get a theme on. It's also inherently powerful. Now, this is the bit you've all been waiting for. What is the go-to beginner mechanized Guard army? Well, it depends. No, I'm joking. Just collect what you want. No. In my experience, and the experience of other mechanized players that I've spoken to, the first thing you should do is aim to have 5 to 6 dedicated transports in your army, and each one of those transports should have a squad of infantry inside them. Now, the infantry can be almost anything. It could be 10 Cadians, 10 Kriegers, 10 Katachans, 10 Kazakin, but some kind of frontline, bog standard, straightforward infantry choice. And I even include Kazakin in that because they're even though they're elite and relatively well equipped, they're still a pretty straightforward choice. 10 dudes, loads of guns, having a great time. So 5 to 6 Chimeras or Tauroxes, 5 to 6 dedicated transports with a 10-man squad in each one. That's your foundation. That's your bread and butter. Me personally, what I did, if you want me to get very specific, is I got 6 10-man squads of, they were the generic infantry squads back in the day. Now I would have them as Cadians, 6 10-man Cadian squads inside 6 Chimeras. I bought that 8 years ago. If you ever watch my battle reports, it's still my go-to configuration for my Met Guard. The next thing you want is your main battle tanks. Now, when I originally got into my Steel Legion, Rogel Dawns didn't exist. So what I personally got was 6 Leman Russes. I don't think you need that many anymore. The reason I got 16 Russes back in the day was because the Russ kit was a lot more limited. You didn't get all the different turret options that you do now. Based on new information, I think you could go for 4 Leman Russes. If you wanted to go down I say 4 to 5, you wouldn't need all 6 now. If you wanted to go down the Rogel Dawn route, I think you could go for 3 Russes and 2 Rogel Dawns. But long story short, 5 main battle tanks, and that's it. Now, speaking of Rogel Dawns versus Russes, personally, if you are looking for an army that again isn't going to change, you're a beginner, so you can just work towards this and know that no matter what changes around you, when you get to the end of your hobby journey, the army is still going to be viable. This may surprise you, but I would avoid the Rogel Dawn. The reason why I would avoid the Rogel is, even though it's a fantastic model and it's a very cool model as well, and its rules tend to be pretty decent, it has a lot less flexibility. You've only got 2 turret choices. You've only got a couple of sponsor choices. And so it's a lot more susceptible to a balance patch coming along and making it less good. Whereas with the Lehman Russes, you have 4 or 5 different sponsor choices, 3 weapons that can go in the front, 7 different options for the turret. The kit allows you to build all 7 options. You actually get 2 turrets per tank now, so you've got infinite flexibility there. And hell, you even get a couple of different options for the bloody pintle weapon. Do you want a Stormbolter or a Stubber? So the Russ is just so much more flexible as a kit, which is why I probably would recommend that. Talking about dedicated transports, I mentioned Chimeras and Tauroxes. I personally would recommend the Chimera over the Taurox. Right now, at time of recording this video, on the 10th of the 6th, 2025, that's UK date. If you're in America, that might not make much sense. But at time of recording, Tauroxes are great. But historically, since they've come out, they've been absolutely dog shit. So the Chimera has always been a steady unit. So if you're looking for which transports I'd recommend the Chimera every single time. It's not necessarily always the best transport, but it's never a bad transport. So 5 to 6 Chimeras, 5 Lehman Russes. The last piece of the puzzle is you probably want a couple of artillery pieces. Manticores or basilisks or artillery teams or field arms batteries, something like that. And again, I have to point to the basilisk. The Manticore is a great artillery piece, but it always has this one addition on, one addition off, one addition on, one addition off. It's always on and off. The Wyvern's not been good since 7th. The Basilisk has had high points and low points, but it's never been completely on or completely off. It's always been like in the middle, and a little bit, sometimes it's a bit better than normal, and sometimes a little bit worse than normal. How many would I recommend? I'd say 2 to 3. And if you work towards what I've just said, 5 to 6 Chimeras, a 10-man squad of your choice in each one, 4 to 5 Lehman Russes, and 2 to 3 Basilisks. If you work towards that over a short period of time or over a long period of time, I guarantee you that army will be good on the day you complete it, and it will be good many years into the future. And if you want proof, again, I will say it again. At the start of 8th edition, I bought my Steel Legion army, built it and put it all together in a very short space of time. That Steel Legion collection has remained fundamentally unchanged, apart from the Manticores. I use Basilisk now. That's it. That's 8 years. Put it this way. Any veterans watching this right now, when was the last time you could point to an army that went 8 years with basically no changes? And so that is why I think Mech Guard is the best beginner guard playstyle. Because it's one that you, as a beginner, you can get into with great confidence and know that when you get to the end of your journey and the army is completed, you'll have a force that will be with you for a long time. And one other thing I forgot to mention is it's also relatively easy to play, because with the infantry being inside the transports, you've only got about 10 to 12 models you actually have to move around. Much easier to manage, and all those models tend to be very consistent in terms of their loadouts. Give all the Chimeras the same weapons, try and give the Lehman Russes mostly the same weapons, bit of variation there, but that's fine. Have all the infantry squads loaded out the same. Do that, and you have a force that's simple to pilot, great, which is very, very good competitively. It's simple to pilot, quick to build and paint, easy to put together, and also looks great on the tabletop. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. Do you think that Met Guard is a good beginner army list, or do you think there's a better playstyle for beginners getting into our beloved faction, the Emperor's True Finest, for the first time? If you enjoyed today's video and found it helpful, please go ahead and smash that like button and subscribe to never miss an episode. I know it's cringy asking for likes and subscribes, but it really does boost the video with the algorithm. And if you didn't like the video, guess what? You can go ahead and dislike it, because honestly, YouTube can't tell the difference between likes and dislikes. It just sees interactivity. That's why videos that get disliked into the ground often go viral. More you know. But that's all for now. Thank you for watching. And of course, as always, I'll see you guys next time.